Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is the 7th session of Sutta Studies for the Rains Retreat 2023. And we're on the theme of Sammasati. This is part 2. Since I did the first part last time. So I'll try to continue. But just a short review about Sati. This is I guess mindfulness is the most common translation, but unfortunately it's been so overused the last while that it's lost much of its Buddhist context. So I would translate it myself as attentiveness, right attentiveness. Attention is one of the, in Buddhist psychology, attention is one of the fundamental mental functions. We all have attention. So we already have sati to a degree, you could say, but most people's attention is very, very undisciplined, hasn't been trained very well. So your attention is pulled out to the strongest sense impression, or even if we do give our attention to something, most of the time it's very, very momentary. It's just a short observing what's happening, and then we go off into the associations, the elaborations, the discussions about it, rather than actually hold our attention there. So this quality of mind, sati, the Buddha realized has very significant importance, especially in spiritual practice, but even in the world in general. If we can train this attention, and you probably recognize that depending upon what comes into your attention will influence your mind. The whole basis of kamma. If you attend to unskillful things, they will tend to dominate the mind. You attend to skillful things, they will dominate the mind, and for beneficial qualities, increase the beneficial qualities. So this quality of sati, attentiveness, and it's for satipatthana. The attending with attentiveness is based upon, it's an educated attentiveness now. So we attend to 4 particular themes: body, feeling, states of mind, and dhammas. And we attend in a particular way as well. Remember that? Internally, externally, both internally, externally, then observing the arising factors, the passing away factors, and both the arising and passing away factors. That's the correct method. And while sati itself is a very, very powerful effect, within the satipatthana, the development of it, it's supported by other qualities, right? Energetic. We also practice with energy, clearly knowing, and putting away desire and discontent with the world. Putting away desire and discontent implies that there is some degree of samadhi or collectedness. It's collectedness which can at least suspend desire and discontent to some degree, initially. And basically the effect of sati is it objectifies things rather than subjectify. We have our underlying dispositions to subjectify, to self-reference everything. And when the body's moving, maybe you hear either consciously, maybe unconsciously, a little voice says, "Oh, I am walking. I am sitting." But if we have sati, it just observes. Oh, body is sitting. Body is walking. Notice that? It objectifies it. It's like with sati we have an observing process rather than identifying process, you see. And if we don't have sati, then automatically this subjectification, this self-referencing comes in. Automatically we have an underlying disposition, anusaya, to conceit or self-reference things. So without sati, life is dangerous. and enlightenment's far away. That's why the Buddha said it was a direct path, you see. But of course, this has to be developed as well, because initially, attentiveness may be very, very weak. You know, oh yes, right. Be attentive to the body, right? And then next minute you forgot already. Or you're onto something else. You're onto, onto memories or something or other, But okay, back to the breathing again, back to the sensation of the body again. It has to be trained till it gains some momentum or some strength. It can become a spiritual power then. And attentiveness is there, more and more frequently, more and more steadily, continuously. Ajahn Chah once gave the analogy of it's just like turning on the tap, you see. You just turn the tap a little bit, you get a few little drips come out, turn a bit more, a few more drips, and eventually if you keep it up, turn the tap more. If you keep up your practice of sati, strengthening it, it becomes a steady flow then. Until it's said that the arahants have sati 24/7. Never forget. They always are attentive. So that's the benefit of it. And then we come to the exercises. And last time I mentioned the first exercise in the body contemplation. Yeah, we are to practice, develop satipatthana. We are told to contemplate the body, contemplate feelings, contemplate the mind, states of mind, contemplate the various dhammas. So contemplation is to try to observe carefully, continuously. So we do it with the body, first of all, the breathing, right? Remember the exercise? Yeah, 2 weeks ago? Do you have enough sati to remember that? So we know to breathe in, when you're breathing in a long breath, breathing out a long breath, breathing in a short breath, breathing out a short breath. And then we are to train the body, train sati to observe the body, be aware of the body, the third exercise. And the fourth one is to tranquilize, train to tranquilize the breath body, the breathing process. Those are the 4 breathing exercises. Then we come to the next exercise in the 6 exercises of body contemplation is beware the 4 postures: standing, walking, sitting, lying down. Just be aware of, it's like now we're shifting from, you can say, the specific object of breathing to the body in general as it's moving through space. And I'm sure we're all aware to some degree when we're walking or sitting, whatever, but how many of us really have attentiveness, a sustained attentiveness to those postures? This gives some stability to the observing of the bodily sensations. Yeah. And the 4 different postures, these are just, 4 is a sort of a very round number in Buddhist teachings. So it's like give you 4 basic postures, but you can be aware of any posture, squatting down, reaching up, whatever, it's just and when you're moving from, say, the standing to the sitting, yeah, doesn't mean, okay, I'm only aware of standing, then you forget your mindfulness until you're sitting again, but to bring some continuity there, from standing to sitting to walking, or standing to walking, walking to sitting, whatever, lying down to the end. That's really exercise, try to be aware of lying down to standing or something, though falling down. And the third of the exercises is like a modification of the second one. is to be aware of the bodily activities, clearly knowing the body in its various positions, whatever you're doing. So this is, again, it's like a development or a continuity or development of attentiveness, not just the postures, but every single movement. Getting dressed, or we're eating, talking, whatever you're bathing, whatever, all these activities. And this is also a very, it says that we're clearly knowing these activities of the body. And the effect of it is, if you can do that, you notice, again, the body moving, rather than somebody moving. Yeah. Sometimes it can, when the sati can become empowered, it gains some strength by itself. Occasionally, it becomes really clear. Oh, just it's like a robot moving. Somebody observing this robot, going through the motions. And while in the Pali Canon, there's no elaboration of what it means to clearly know these bodily activities, but the commentary adds some, could be helpful. I would say part of it's helpful anyway. Sometimes it makes it a bit more confusing, but the commentary suggests that this clearly knowing should have 4 aspects to it. First of all is the purpose, why we are moving the body around in different ways. What's the real purpose of this? Sometimes our activities, they're just habitual activities, right? Why do we actually do these particular activities? Are there is really a good purpose to it? And of course, in the background of the purpose is this purpose for the development of attentiveness, or for meditation, or just distracting yourself or wasting your time? Why are you going out to do walking? Just to go and look at the flowers, or or is it going to be walking meditation, or are you being attentive to what's going on? You need to relax the body when you're walking around. The second purpose is suitability. Is this activity suitable? And this kind of the most common reference to this suitability was in reference to good conduct. That somebody who is, say, keeping the precepts, they behave in a certain kind of suitable way. Like in the monastic rules, we have a whole bunch of what we call the sakyas, the training rules about what our comportment is. We shouldn't walk in the village swinging our arms. You can do that on the path out here. You're doing your whatever aerobic walking or something, but but not in the village. Doesn't look very, very nice, you see. We should make sure that our robes are neatly aligned on the bottom here, you see. But if you bring that into this attentiveness to your bodily actions, you notice, oh, is this really suitable? Is this kind of activity aimed towards good conduct? Is it sort of polite or appropriate? Maybe some of the things are not. Yeah. The third one is, how does this relate to meditation? And the reference to that is in the context of basically sense restraint. Are your actions, are they like a distractive exercise, or is it to do with sense restraint and moderation and tranquility and equanimity and clearly knowing? Does it support kind of calmness of mind or distractedness? And the last one is, they say, of course, non-delusion. That is, that you're aiming towards recognizing the true nature of the body. There is this physical body here, and it has its various needs, it has its various activities. We must eat, must sleep, must bathe, go to the toilet, etc. That's just the way this physical body is. Maybe some of these activities, if you have a continuity of awareness around them, attentiveness, you notice some of them we're happy to observe. Eating, we're all happy to be attentive to eating, right? Going to the toilet, get it done with and get out of there quick. Smells too much anyway. That's interesting. Why is that? Why is there reversion to that part of the eating process, the digestive process? So this is like, it's kind of like a development process here, from the subtle breathing, you say, to the body acts, the four postures, the more diversity of activities, and then we come to the next exercise, is kind of shift emphasis from observing the body as it is to a contemplation. Oh, I should mention with the bodily activities, this is really helpful too for, I would say, first of all, for helping ground people who are mostly in their mind. They can ground their attention in the body. This helps to settle their mind more. And the body is much slower to change than the thoughts. Yeah. So if you can take your attention away from your busy thoughts back into the body, then it slows down. And this is very helpful, especially for awareness of states of mind, because the bodily activities also reflect your state of mind. Yeah. Your state of mind is reflected in your bodily activities. There was somebody I knew, they did some kind of body work process, which has to do with posture, basically. And then she could look at people walking, and she could read their minds, basically, just seeing how they walked. Most people, they walk with their head in front of themselves, you see. They have a thought where they're going, and their head leads them. And they drag their body afterwards, you see. So they had a special phrase for that. Something like, oh, that's the head-led posture or something. Other people, they walk around really stooped. The world is pressing on their shoulders. They're a depressive temperament. And one of the most obvious ones is, of course, in your face. When, for example, we all know that when somebody's happy, they smile, right? When they're sad, they frown. Well, psychologists found it also works vice versa. If you feel a bit depressed, try smiling. See how your mood changes. It was quite amazing. I was testing it out the other day, coming down for breakfast on the walking path. And as I noticed, first of all, if I frowned, my body felt heavier. I felt more depressed. I even frowned even more. So I tried to make an effort to smile, and the body felt lighter. Just by changing these muscles here. It affects our whole mood. Try it. Could use some more smiley faces. And you don't have to go around like a toothpaste commercial, grinning all the time. It's just a matter of just changing these muscles right here, see? Just lift these muscles slightly. It can change your mood. So changing to the emphasis now, the next one is the 31 parts of the body. So the exercise now changes to reviewing the body. That is, just as there is, in this, there's in this body, review, there is in this body these particular parts. And the early exercise, the easy exercise, is the first 5 parts, which we do from when in the ordination procedure, the novices and monks are given the first 5 objects. Ke salo manakadanta tacho. Hair the head, hair the body, nails, teeth, and skin as a meditation. So there's at least 5 you can remember. It's not too complicated. 31. I had to look in an anatomy book to find out where the spleen was. Even what the spleen was, no idea. And it's in the exercise. It also says, and whatever parts there are. So it's not just 31, but any other parts of the body which are most obvious. For example, if you have some particular ailment or some discomfort somewhere, I can put my attention to my sore toe. It's most obvious sometimes. My sore toe is more obvious than my spleen, you see. So, and the same purpose is, we begin to observe the body, we review the body just as like a bag of skin, or the analogy is like a bag with different beans in it. There are different parts in the body, you see. Normally we just look at the surface. Say, well, that's the body there, but the body is composed of many different parts. There's just all kinds of different parts working together, and it's actually quite miraculous that they keep working. Till they don't, of course, but so when we do that, we can get a more, you could say, kind of a detached attitude, rather than my body and this particular, physical form outside. You see, there's various parts working, just like a car, different parts working together. So it gives us a little bit more of an impersonalized or objective view of what these things are, what the body really is like. And then the fifth one, yes, we now change again from the 31 parts to the 4 elements. And this is maybe a little bit more complex for people in the West, because we don't think in terms of the 4 elements, but in India at the time they did. Earth, fire, water, air. They didn't talk about molecules and atoms, they just talked about these elemental qualities. And they aren't elements. It doesn't mean that there's, dirt necessarily in your body. They symbolize solidity. Earth is solidity. Water is cohesion. Air is mobility or movement and expansion. And the heat, the fire, is heat and cold, as well as digestion and also decay, maturation or decay. So if you again, there's just these 4. 31 is too much. 31 parts is a bit too much to handle. You can see the 4 elements. Once you get some understanding of what these elemental qualities are, if you can begin to try to observe them in your body, and you begin to notice, there's just these 4 elements going on here. So somebody maybe ask you as a Buddhist to say, how are you today? Well, my earth element is a bit sluggish. My water element's a bit displaced. Don't tell your friends that, but you can tell your Buddhist friends that. You really want to know wind today, too much wind. I tried this once on a retreat because when I was in Northumberland, every year we have a 10-day retreat, and it was almost always the same people. So we went through, most of the teachers went through the basic ones, the breathing and bodily postures, and then maybe they went to feelings and states of mind, But so I said, well, this time we'll do it differently. We'll be aware of the 4 elements in the body. They never even heard of that before. What are the 4 elements? So we spent a whole day at least studying the 4 elements and trying to observe that, and it gave some people, they could really appreciate how it totally shifted their whole awareness to the body. Because even being aware of the body walking or sitting, whatever, they still had this in the back of their mind, the perception of their body, see? But then 4 elements moving around, bumping into each other. It's like atoms and molecules bumping into each other. And then the last one is to compare this just as a decaying corpse. And again, maybe it's more complicated or difficult in the West because whoever sees a decaying corpse these days, except for dogs. But, so maybe you have to look at, pictures or something rather, but it is a kind of a visualization because, in the Buddhist time, the monks could go to the charnel ground and observe a corpse there in different stages. It starts off with the corpse in its various stages. First of all, it's just swollen, and then it's starting to get to maggots, and then it's starting to break down, and then it's getting eaten by the dogs or animals, and then it's scattered bones and things, different, until only the dry bones are left. But for us, we have to, and once we go there and see this, then they take this image back to their meditation place. It'd be probably a bit hard to meditate in the charnel ground with all the dogs fighting over the bodies, so they go back to their quiet place, and then they close their eyes and bring this picture back into their mind, you see. Bring this image back into their mind. So you can look at a picture in a book maybe, and then bring it up into your mind, try and remember that, refresh it. And I would say, you have to be a little bit careful with this for people in the West, because we aren't used to this kind of thing. Most of the time, bodies, as soon as they're even sick, hidden away, right? Hidden away in the hospital or hidden away in some place, And but even Thailand too, nowadays hidden away, yeah. Yep. Well, unless you're in the village somewhere and you want to keep your mother or father there with you in the family, then maybe you don't observe them kind of fading away. I mean, yeah, they're getting weaker and weaker, and yeah, but not after they're dead. You have to start to smell too much, right? But the point is too also to bring in maybe this reflection on death as well. We're supposed to compare the body. This body, that body there, this body here will be like that body there eventually. You have to compare it. It hasn't happened yet, but it will. So get you used to the idea that the body will break down, and you'll die, and the body will break down eventually. Yeah, step by step. So that at least we become more familiar with the reality of death, which is going to happen anyway. The more you try and keep it at arm's length or forget about it, the bigger the shock's going to be. Yeah. So these various body contemplations, I mean, it depends on, I think, people's temperament, and there's a variety of them. So I would suggest when you already have some settledness in your meditation, maybe you could expand it. Take on another one of these things, even if it is exercises, even if they're a little bit challenging. Got to study the 4 elements first, okay? But once you learn about them, then you can have maybe a very good theme to apply to sometimes, to bring into your meditation practice. When the other meditation exercises don't seem to be very inspiring or useful maybe, then bring in some new ones. Would give a great variety of different types of meditation exercises for different temperaments of people. Like they say, the one on the 4 elements is more for intellectual people, because you have to think about them, the 4 elements, and and maybe the last one, the corpse one, for people who can visualize more, have a more visual approach, and maybe also have a lot of lust, and the other ones, what do you say, maybe the various bodily activities for people who are a bit more athletic. I became aware of a lot of my muscles recently, all the exercise I do. Unfortunately. Unfortunately I recognize them, or I have to. Didn't know I had so many muscles, actually. Too many to feel. So that's the first exercise of the 4 attendings with mindfulness. The second one is a bit more subtle, because the body, of course, is a bit more external, you can say. You can see the bodily postures, you can feel them a bit easier. When it comes to feeling, it's a bit more subtle. Feeling's a bit more internal. Huh? But feeling is a very, very important one, because we all have feeling all the time. It's also one of the primal kind of mental functions. There's attention I mentioned, then there's consciousness or vinyan, then feeling happens. And this is very, very, it happens automatically. So unless you're aware of it, you don't even notice that it's, that this is this mental function, this emotion, if you like, it's taken us over. Just why are we feeling this way? Yeah, it's only a feeling, which is triggered off by vijnana, by knowing, by the senses, you see. So it's a very fundamental one. If also we have to get some kind of an understanding of it, because feeling, well, this is the general translation, and it's, in English, when we talk about feeling, used to be think of emotion, right? But this is not an emotion. Emotion is a state of mind. Feeling is just the very basic tone of the emotion, the hedonic tone, we say. General tone, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. So if you feel yourself happy, look, what's the feeling tone behind it? Pleasant, right? Usually. Yeah. Unless you're a masochist, I guess, or something. But anyway, generally keep it simple. And then if you're not feeling so happy, behind it, what's the feeling tone? Oh, it's unpleasant. Where did that come from? Huh? It's all triggered off a part of the causal sequence, causal and effect relationships here. You don't need to get so depressed about your unhappy feeling. If you can look at it, oh, it's just feeling. Yeah. And especially if you observe, if you have some attentiveness to feeling over this, how fragile it really is, how ephemeral, how it comes and it goes. There, you have probably millions of feelings every day, physical and mental. Most of them are so subtle or so quick you hardly notice them, but they come and they go and they come and they go, and only when it's really, maybe it's really extreme, very severe happiness or unhappiness, you notice it. But there's pleasant, unpleasant, and then there's neither pleasant or unpleasant, or neutral, keep it simple, huh? And there's feelings there all the time, whenever you're conscious. So if you don't notice any feeling, it's neutral. Yep. Neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And the Buddha, the Buddha gave, in this exercise, he gave 6 feelings, actually, to try to be attentive to. There's the 3, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, with regard to sensual stimulation, the worldly feelings, pleasant sight, pleasant sound, unpleasant sight, sound, etc. Then there's the spiritual ones, spiritual pleasure, spiritual pain, spiritual neutral feeling. You know what those are? So they're based upon, the whole, you can say, the perceptual process. There's the senses, there's a vijnana consciousness, and there's feeling. So it's happening automatically, based upon contact. So if you notice, if you can notice the feeling, go back to what's the contact. What's triggering off this pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling or neutral feeling. Especially observing the worldly and unworldly ones or spiritual ones. The point of observing these feelings is that we get some understanding of where they come from, and there's these 2 kinds, because we always have feeling, for example. So, just trying to ignore pleasant feeling is not going to work. And human beings are actually sentient, or you can say sensual beings. So the Buddha realized this, I would say. So, but he recognized that, there's 2 kinds of pleasant feelings, and the spiritual ones were actually valuable, were useful. If you have a spiritual pleasant feeling, you can relax. It actually is conducive to samadhi, right collectedness. If you're always suffering all the time, too much pain, no collectedness. You maybe notice when the body is in pain, for example, mind gets very distracted. It's trying to escape from the pain, so it doesn't want to be collected and settled. So for the pleasant feeling, pleasant spiritual feeling, the Buddha allowed the spiritual feelings from meditation practice, which he referred to as the bliss of renunciation, the bliss of seclusion, the bliss of calm, the bliss of awakening. Most people don't realize that there is a different quality to pleasant feeling, like a spiritual quality. It's much more subtle, much more grounded, much more pervasive in the background. It doesn't stand out and shout out loud noises. It's in the background, like the bliss of renunciation. If you can just not be distracted by a lot of sensory input, the peace of mind that comes from that. We all know this, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We'd be in the shopping center right now, right? Yes. And the Buddha realized how valuable this was, that he even had joy as one of the factors of awakening. Joy, rapture, piti, one of the factors of awakening. And in the first absorption, piti sukha, well-being and rapture are two of the qualities, the qualities of absorption. Then it comes to unpleasant feeling. And I guess the benefit of that, the spiritual one, is that we can transform it into reflections on the Four Noble Truths. Dukkha, unpleasant feeling. It's in the background all the time. If we could be happy all the time, have pleasant feeling all the time, we wouldn't be on this planet. We'd be in Deva Loka. We'd be in the heaven realms. But we're here right now, so so for human beings, if we're lucky, we get 50-50. Sometimes it's sort of like 30-70 or 70-30, but anyway, for some people. But it requires to actually investigate dukkha, unpleasant feeling, requires a certain degree of collectedness or calm, because we all have so much unprocessed reaction to dukkha, unpleasant feeling, unskillfully, trying to ignore it, trying to run away from it, trying to forget about it. That takes a while for us to work through it. But if your mind is somewhat calm, then it's calm beyond the reactiveness. So we can see this in a fresh way. See this experience of unpleasant feeling happening in the present moment. It's not eternal, not there all the time. But if we don't have the presence of mind, the attentiveness, then some unpleasant feeling comes along and it triggers off this kind of a whole feedback loop. Oh no, not again. This pain, oh yeah, can't get out of it. No escape. It's hopeless. But go back to your breathing again, relax. Oh, pleasant feeling. Oh, wait a minute. Can change, yeah. And if you happen to observe feeling over some continuity, you notice that actually the most frequent feeling tone is neutral. And notice that. Hard to notice because, again, it doesn't stand out. We notice the pleasant and the unpleasant most predominantly, but if you're observing feeling, every time just ask yourself, what's the feeling now? What's the feeling now? What's the feeling now? Most of the time, the answer will be neutral. But it's also very unstable because it's a feeling. However, the Buddha realized the stability, the value of that stability of neutral feeling as equanimity. It's also a factor of awakening, equanimity, which is a highly developed. The danger with not being attentive to neutral feeling is delusion. We don't notice it. So we just lose ourselves. We get confused, and delusion is one of the results of it then. If we aren't carefully aware of pleasant feeling, it can become lust, or it can become greed. We want to keep it. If we aren't aware of unpleasant feeling skillfully, then it becomes depression and anger and resentment and irritation. And so the way to practice with it, also Sutta 7, hope you read that in the Vedana Samyutta homework. Yeah? Anybody? Come on, somebody did their homework in 2 weeks. Sutta 7 shows you how to practice, tells you how to practice it. That we notice, we contemplate, or we know that the feelings in the body feelings and the body are impermanent. They're conditioned and dependently arisen. We contemplate the feelings in the body as passing away, fading away, ceasing. Contemplate relinquishment. That is, these feelings are impermanent, not held to, not delighted in, and we feel detached then from the feelings. But of course, it requires some practice, because most people, they have this we have our particular habits. I relate to pleasant feeling. I want to keep it. Unpleasant feeling, trying to avoid it. Can't observe it carefully. So we have to break through these habits, but with attentiveness, just observing feeling. So you got it feeling, just the hedonic tone of our experience. And maybe it can be helpful to do it, I would say. I find it helpful to sometimes just ask yourself at odd moments of the time, odd moments, say, okay, what's the feeling now? Not only when you're meditating, but just in the course of the day. What's the feeling now? Hot. Unpleasant. Just because it's just a conditioned experience, right? Conditioned by the external conditions, the sense impressions. The body is now under pressure, it's hot. So unpleasant feeling. And then when it cools down, changes again. Don't rely upon the feelings. They're very, very fragile. Yeah. So then we come to the third of the themes, states of mind, chitta nupassana. And the chitta in the Pali scriptures, the Pali Canon, usually just means the content of the mind in general. Later it became to mean the mind, chitta, but it means the content of the mind. So I guess the best we can do in English is states of mind, but it's a bit misleading, I think, because where does one state end and the next one begin? Huh? They're all kind of mixed up together here. But to give us, I think the Buddha realized that, so he gave us some helpful hints. So he just mentioned, you mentioned these 16 particular states of mind to be aware of, And there's sort of a very good general overview of states of mind. There's 4 of them are sort of ordinary or unskillful even. Then there's 4 which are kind of higher states of mind to do with meditation or spiritual practice then. And in a way, this was also, quite a radical way to look at the mind, to actually observe the content of the mind. For most people, they just identify with their mind, right? There's a I am happy, I am unhappy, I'm sad, or I'm angry, or whatever. Again, the subjectiveness or self-referencing just automatically jumps in. But now to set up attentiveness and observe is like stepping back now. Oh, what is this mind doing now? Huh? Yeah, not my mind. What is this mind doing now? Yeah. Trying to observe it, with some degree of objectivity now. The mind now, not my mind. And interesting enough, the Buddha starts off with, these 3, the 3 bases of unskillful action: lust, anger, delusion. Try to be aware of them. For most people, it's even hard to observe them, hard to acknowledge them, isn't it? Who wants to acknowledge they've got anger? Huh? But if we have already, this is presuming some degree of development of attentiveness, been able to be attentive to the body, to the feelings, now to the states of mind, you can just observe, there is anger there. It's like looking at a computer screen with anger written on it. Huh? Notice that? Instead of me and identifying with it and then trying to solve it, you can just observe, isn't that interesting? There's anger there. What's this all about now? I can try and investigate it and study it in depth as it really is, not with all my projections onto it, my assumptions, my presumptions, etc. Just observe it as it is. And unless we're able to observe really clearly what lust, anger, and delusion are, how are we ever going to dissolve them? You don't even know what your anger is. We're deluded about it. How are you ever going to resolve it? People never think about that. They just want to get rid of it. It makes it more complicated then. So we try to observe these particular states of mind. I mean, sometimes they aren't so definite, but if you just trying to observe the state of mind in any particular time, you might notice, oh, that's what, the angry mind is like. And it's not just one state, right? We all have different kinds of anger. At different times we have different degrees or qualities of anger, different types of it. So it's beginning to study it in some depth. Not just a 5-letter word. And 50,000 permutations of anger. And then also when there's non-lust, non-anger, non-delusion there. It doesn't mean that you have to wait till you're an arahant, I would say, but if you observe your states of mind, sometimes you notice, oh, at this moment there isn't any obvious lust or anger or delusion. The mind is not so clear, but it's not, not totally deluded either. Different degrees of it. Then there is the distracted mind and the contracted mind, which is, distracted we know, contracted, it can sound a bit, like the mind is a bit more settled, you can say, or a bit more closed in, contracted, rather than expansive or distracted, you see. And then there are the higher states of mind, the great mind. And the great mind was usually, this phrase was used in context of, say, developing the Brahma Viharas, developing the great mind. It means very expansive. It's practicing metta bhavana as a great mind, very expansive, unlimited, boundless, I think it says in the chanting, right? Then the unsurpassable mind. Again, this was also sort of refers to kind of very advanced states of meditation, unsurpassable or surpassable. That means, okay, you can recognize, to some degree what level of practice you're at. Needs some developments, needs some increase, got to increase these different qualities, whether the mind is concentrated or not. And then, of course, the last one is liberated or not. More like not than liberated. But to try and observe. I mean, sometimes there is a little bit of an experience, maybe like liberation. Your mind's very, very light and very expansive, and seems to have no limits to it. Most of the time, maybe we don't give it, without having it labeled or pointed out to us, we wouldn't notice that. We think we're daydreaming or something. Huh? Daydreaming. Your mind's liberated, but you're daydreaming. Huh? Not doing my work. Spaced out. So the point, the most important part is that with attentiveness, we're just trying to observe a non-reactive, just observe these particular states, not try to change them. Interesting that the Buddha in this Satipatthana was not pointing out actually changing them. A lot of of course, the scriptures talk about how you should not give in to anger and but in Satipatthana, just observing them, studying these states of mind. No mention of trying to change them at all. Study them first, know them very carefully. So this is trying to objectify these particular, states of mind, conditions of mind. They're just mental objects. The Buddha gave one analogy he gave was like guests coming. The guests come and they go. The mind itself is, the Buddha said, was luminous, but different. It's disturbed by different guests that come and go. You see, akanduka, guests who come and go. Or with the feelings, the Buddha talked about the wind, various winds that blow. And now the wind's blowing from the north, so it's warm. A few days it'll blow from the south, cold. unpleasant feeling. So the whole point is to try to, develop this attentiveness to set up a very skillful attitude of mind, trying to observe, just observe what the conditions are first before we jump in and try and change them. Most people are they already have a lot of, even they have good intentions. They don't want to be angry people, but if you don't really understand what the anger is coming from, what the source of it is, you don't actually skillfully deal with the source. It's still going to be there. You're just going to cover it up and make it more complicated. Then you get angry at your anger. I've heard so many people, they ask me, how to get rid of my anger? I say, don't try. Trying to get rid of your anger is buying into the anger. You have to, first of all, you have to study it. Find out what's the cause of the anger. What's the cause of the anger? Unpleasant feeling. So the basis of it is unpleasant feeling of some kind. When you can realize that, and where does unpleasant feeling come from? Contact. Some contact of something which is unpleasant. You interpret to be unpleasant. So then you go back to the real source of these things. And some of those sources, of course, are, they're immediate, like the change of weather or something. Other times they are more habitual. You have your backlog of unskillful processing of dukkha, and there's a habit there, triggers off some kind of trauma or something. So maybe it takes a little bit more study or investigation, deeper levels of our psyche then, into the habits, the sankharas. So anyway, this is the third of the exercise, of the four exercises of samasati. So I still have one more, the Dhammas, which has 5 parts to it. So probably you've had enough information for today. Absorb this and practice this. And when you practice these different levels, then when we come to the next theme, the Dhammas, part of them are various states of mind. The hindrances and the factors of awakening. So if you study your states of mind, you'll notice some of them they hinder the mind from expansiveness. Others ones, they kind of uplift it. So if you have some experience of it before, then you'll know when I talk about these kind of categories or themes, you'll be able to recognize them in your own experience then. So hopefully that's sufficient for your understanding today.
Mayang Dhamma Vargata Sadhu Karang Dharamase Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu